I'm Scott Fisk. I am the founder and CCO, Chief Creative Officer of IA, the Independent Artist. What you're watching here are some of our recorded live events. We go live every single week. We are artist for artist, artist to artist, completely unscripted. If you'd like to know more about what we're doing, or if you'd like to sit in on one of the lives and who knows, maybe be interviewed yourself, then tap the link that's in our description. We'll see you inside. And tonight is really, really fantastic. We're going to be talking to a school teacher, a special early childhood educator, master's degree, speaking about art, movement, music, play, all of the things within this digital landscape. Another thing that's really spectacular, she's also my girlfriend, and her name is Lara Merchant, and she's had 2 decades and counting in education. So without going too much further than that, she's already waiting in the green room, and I would love to invite her in as a speaker. And we are going to get going with this. Lara, I have just invited you in, and hopefully you won't have any problem jumping in. And here she is. Hey.
Hi,
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Yeah, yeah, get yourself situated, whatever works
Yeah, there's
out
just
well
a little
for
bit of a
you.
glare. I was trying to get rid of that glare, but
It's all good. It's all good. I just want to thank you so much for being here in the community with us and having this conversation. You and I have shared many chats about this very topic over the past almost 3 years, or more than 3 years. And why not bring this here tonight and let you speak about your truth and what you know, because you've been in this profession during the entire transition into digital and tablet devices. Like, I'm sure when you first started, I'll let you speak to all of it, but pre-learning tablets and pre-devices to assist teachers, right? So
right.
yeah. So anyway, let you talk, and this is just you and I having a conversation. I can see that there's already some people starting to migrate in. So here we go. So Lara, here we are. Let's hear a little bit about you. Tell
All
me
right.
tell me where you're from and what's up.
Um, well, so you already said I'm an early childhood special educator, and my biggest passions are really around trauma-informed approaches and care when working with children, because so many children have experienced trauma. And with that, they need to learn how to self-regulate. They need to learn how to regulate their bodies and know their bodies in space and not crash into other people, and learn how to calm themselves down so they can learn. So I've done a lot of work with trauma, and that was what my master's was in. But yeah, when you were talking about the whole, development of screen time and how that's just become ubiquitous everywhere. Even our littlest learners are using tablets. And we saw a big shift, I would say probably after COVID. I don't know if there's any correlation with that or not, but I suspect so, because so many kids were home for so long.
Mhm.
And so after COVID, there were a lot of kids who just really didn't know how to sit at a table and eat a meal, which is not uncommon for preschoolers, but it was more amplified. Um, and I think the biggest thing that I noticed is the lack of fine motor skills. So being able to use like their smaller muscles in order to be able to write one day. So, and that's been significant ever since. It's just something that I've seen a real lagging skill in these kids. And yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about all of that if you wanted.
Yeah,
Um,
no, but I want you to unpack what feels right, and we'll also circle back in terms of why the things that we had growing up as kids, those spaces to create and to be bored and to use our imagination, those are really important things to have. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to do a little disclaimer. Being a teacher, I am a researcher. So anytime I do a podcast or a live or a webinar, I always do a little research first. And the other thing is I had a really hard time focusing in school growing up. So I'm pretty sure I have undiagnosed ADD. And so I've learned to do my own accommodations with that, which is something special educators do. They make accommodations for kids in school. And
Yep.
one of those accommodations is to write notes and to have notes. So if I refer to my notes, that's why it helps keep me on task. So I just wanted to put that out there.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I already know this. I mean, they don't. I'm glad you're sharing all of that. Yeah.
Well,
You
and
know
I
how
think it's important and it's relevant to the
yeah,
conversation.
it is. Very, very.
So I guess one of the things that I found, I'm going to share some fun facts, is that the average American teen right now spends more than 7 hours a day on screens. And that is like, how do you even have 7 hours in a day to do that? I mean, you're in school for about 7 hours a day. So where are the other 7? Well, that probably means they're losing sleep, right? Because they're staying up late and they're on their devices. And with that, 58% of American parents limit their teens' use of devices. So that's about half that are not limiting their use. And the reason why that's important to know is because, like I said, they're losing sleep. And then also with that, we know a lot about the blue light. And what the blue light does is it suppresses the production of melatonin. And melatonin is the hormone which helps us to regulate our sleep cycles. So it's really important to not have that exposure before bed. Because then that will impact students when they go to school the next morning. They're going to be tired and fatigued. And also our brains are just not, they're not built to do the scrolling that we do on our phones. We scroll so fast and we swipe, and our brains can't keep up with that. They're not meant to. And so that can really cause some brain fog and some fatigue and some exhaustion.
Yeah, and to your point, like, we're not wired. Now, people can say, oh, we can compensate and we can modify and we can get used to, but not over the long run, short little bursts, but to stay hijacked at that frequency at a constant rhythm. We're talking about humans have been developing for millions of years, right? And in the past 40, we've seen this whole new thing. Oh, humans can adapt. Sure, we can. But we're always we're always right out at the edge. So
Right.
I touched that as you were bringing that up.
Right. And then I guess one could even argue, well, you can take melatonin, right? You can take synthetic melatonin. Well, right. I mean, yeah, done that. Probably not the best thing to do for our kids, even though doctors do prescribe it. And it is considered safe and okay. But especially for kids who are using screen, we just want to limit that. So, their brains are doing the stuff that they need to be doing. Their brains are still developing. In fact, they develop until we're about 25. So we just want to take good care of that. But not only is the usage an issue, but also the content, of course, right? We can't always regulate the content if we're not really supervising their usage. And I mean, a lot of that will go without saying, and what's out there for kids that they should not be seeing and being exposed to. So what's really recommended for kids who are like under 2 years old, that they don't even have any access to any kind of screen unless they're doing like video chats with family or loved ones. Like, that's really nice, right? And then as kids get a little bit older, regardless of what the screen is, you can share in that time with them. So you're making it a little bit more meaningful and educational, and you're asking questions, and you're challenging their thinking about things. You can ask them about making predictions, just like you would if you're reading a book, right? Very similar. And then check for comprehension and all of that. But to the point of our kids using screens for such huge amounts of time during the day, there's no time for anything else. And we've had this conversation, but it's really important for kids to know how to be bored, because that's where creativity lives. Right?
That's right.
So when
That's
you're
right.
bored, you got to find stuff to do. And our generation, Gen X, like we were great at that when we were kids. You go out in the woods and you play with sticks and you build little forts and you throw
Hey,
things in the
I
water.
still do that. I still do that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Except the snow's like 85 feet deep right now.
Well, yeah, and then you build snow forts.
But I remember you sharing something with me a couple of years ago because we share a lot of content, that's relevant to all of this. And you had sent me a thing about how boredom is really, really important in terms of letting your mind breathe, letting it
Yeah.
exhale. Because when we're watching our things or doing our things, we're consuming, we're not producing, and our bodies get exhausted because when you're just consumption, 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 whereas being bored and thinking about producing, it's really good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, I mean, I've been guilty of overusing my screen and I know how it makes my brain feel. And then when
Yeah.
I take a break from it for a couple days, I get clarity and focus that I just hadn't had. And then I have to remind myself why. Well, that's because I was being really hijacked. My nervous system was being hijacked by that
Yeah.
scrolling and instant gratification and all that stuff we're just not built to be able to handle. So yeah, I guess, in the whole boredom thing, like that is where creativity lives. And when we think about, especially with our youngest little learners,
How old are the little people that you work with? So you're
preschool. So they're
preschool. Yeah, for the people that are just joining us, that merged in a little bit late, it's really important that I feel it's really important because that age right there is right when the mind is just starting to.
oh my
But
gosh. I mean, the growth is huge from like birth up until, I mean, it continues for, like I said, I mean, your brain keeps developing until at least the frontal lobe until you're about 25. And that's why so many teenagers don't understand consequences yet because their brain isn't fully developed. So when you're thinking of our littlest ones, you want all of those neural pathways and connections to really fire and learn from reading and experiences and exposure to life and not things that are on a screen.
yeah, so let me ask you a question about that because they'll be like, oh, but we've got learning things on our screens. Like you can do crossword puzzles on a screen versus crossword puzzle in a book. So to me, I mean, granted, notebook, analytical. There's something about feeling the paper on your fingers rather than flipping through a Kindle. Or you understand there is a difference. Even though you're doing
Yeah,
the same thing, there's still very much a difference.
absolutely. And actually you remember the old days pre-computers, we would handwrite our papers, right? Which was exhausting, but that's what we did. And they say that actually things stick into your brain much better when you're handwriting things as opposed to typing. So say you're in a college class and you're taking notes on your computer, things tend to stick a little better if you're actually doing the writing.
More in
Um,
printing, more in printing.
yeah. And for me, like reading a book, no judgment on what people want to do, but for me, it's a multi-sensory experience. Like I love the feel of it.
Big word, multi-sensory. You just dropped it right there. Lots of syllables. I dig that. And people are starting to like, if you look over in the comments, if you haven't yet, feel free also to look in those comments.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
everybody,
You still
and
handwrite.
anybody that's just showing up, Lara's my girlfriend, and she and I have spent years talking about early childhood development, music and art and creativity and how critical it is with these very young minds. And I found it so relevant that I asked her if she'd be willing to give us like an educational live. And she's like, heck yeah. So anyway, to what Dan wrote over there, Dan Roth, I still handwrite. It's a drafting technique too.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Dan Zimmerman. Dan, I talk about Dan a lot. Well, I talk about all of them a lot. I don't want to
Yeah,
name.
yeah. And now
Yeah.
I'm seeing faces, so that's cool.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, so what I was talking about earlier, I don't know if you were on or not, but I was saying how I'm pretty convinced I have undiagnosed ADD and I really struggled in school to pay attention. And it wasn't until I was in college when I was taking classes, first of all, I was interested in and I really enjoyed. I still couldn't really focus, but my own coping mechanism that I came up with, nobody told me, was I started taking notes, handwriting, taking notes. And I learned that that really worked, and then the information stuck. And I've been doing it ever since. Even in any of my workshops that I do at school, I'm constantly writing notes. Even if I never look at them again, it's not about that for me. It's about that I need to do it in the moment in order for the information to stick in my brain. So
That's right. That's right.
so
That's
yeah,
right.
focusing your thoughts, absolutely. And I feel like so much creativity, because I'm also a journaler. I like to write a lot. I've written a lot of poetry, and I just enjoy writing little short stories for myself, nothing to ever be published.
It's creative too, everybody.
In my own quiet way. I wouldn't consider myself one, but I do love to write.
You are, yes,
Wow.
writing, journaling, poetry, that's all a creative, that's all a jam.
I
Yeah.
agree with you, Dan. The whole thing about it being a disorder, well, I mean, I could go off on that too, especially as a special educator, but when we talk about autism spectrum disorder, I really don't like that word either. And quite honestly, you might have heard the word neurodivergence. That's the word that is coming up more and more now. And it really is. We're all neurodivergent, all of us.
I love what he wrote. He goes, it's annoying to call it a disorder. It's just a brain that is not cool with conforming quietly. And I dig that. When I was a kid, and my daughter, Adeline, same way, right? My teacher knew that I was going to listen better if I was not doodling. I wasn't like drawing a picture, but I might have been like cross-hatching. And by doing that, I was listening more than sitting there like, it was a way for me to. Now, some teachers rebuke that or don't want you to do that. I mean, I've had pushback, Dan Zimmerman, me too. I wasn't doing it in terms of, in a way, in an exercise to concentrate, like figuring out how to draw hair or whatever, but it was about just a rudimentary, very generic type thing to scribble, basically, for lack of a better, to help me listen better.
Yeah, and I think what's unfortunate, and I see that, Dan had said so many things have been confiscated when he was doodling, and a lot of kids need, again, like multisensory, they need other things in order to get them to focus. And that's why a lot of times with our little ones, we'll give them fidgets, to sit with that circle, and they can fidget with something. Now, we always let them know it's a tool, it is not a toy. And if it becomes a toy and they start playing with it or tossing it, well, it gets taken away. But if it works to help them focus, then that's awesome. I think hopefully more and more teachers now, not so much the older school teachers, but really understand, all of us have different learning styles, and
Absolutely.
yeah, and I remember even knowing all the stuff that I know in terms of special education and like making accommodations. My daughter also struggled with focusing when she was in school. And when she would do her homework here at home, she would always have music or a TV or something on. And I was always like, you got to turn that off. Like, you're not going to be able to focus. It's not going to sink in, because my brain didn't work that way, but hers worked a different way than mine. And it's, especially as a parent, that can be hard to see sometimes. But she knew what she was doing. She knew what was working for her.
Yeah,
So,
she like graduated with honors. Not
yeah,
trying to drop the bomb out here, guys, but yeah, she like totally ruled. She was like roller skates coasting honors. I don't know.
Well, it was a hard ride. It was a hard
I mean,
ride.
I'm just having polite fun here, but that was totally not me, right?
Yeah.
I'm so happy that All right, Dan Roth. He is a big contributor in the comment sections. So I can read these things you can read, but it's
I'm seeing them. I mean, if you want to say them out loud, you can.
No, just therapists, techniques to deal, coping skills, teach, congratulations on figuring it out, all that kind of stuff, right? It's like flying the plane as you build it, and learning a style, learning all this is huge. I mean, ADD and ADHD isn't something that's brand new. Back when I was younger, that was just a kid that was hyper. Go put them on a trampoline or put them in a corner with their nose touching the wall because they're distracting everybody. But,
Yeah. Well, and that's a tricky one. And I noticed somebody had said something in the comments about, thinking maybe screen time had contributed. And it's possible that as parents, we also have to be a little forgiving of ourselves. And, hindsight's 2020. We live and we learn and whatever. But what you were saying actually about jumping on a trampoline, one of the things that I learned from my daughter's doctor was that just 10 minutes of movement can give you 30 minutes of focus. So if somebody's really struggling to pay attention, what I do in preschool is I get those kids moving before they have to sit for circle and listen to a story and then learn how to ask, and answer questions. So I will get them jumping on a trampoline, or we'll go and, go run around in the PE room for a couple of minutes and do some laps before they have to sit, so they have some focus time. So that really is a thing. But, having them, stand in the corner for misbehaving, that's one of the biggest things that just really irks me. And some teachers still do that. But as teachers, we have to learn to be flexible, and we have to allow for differences. So some kids might need to be standing instead of sitting to learn, or standing to work. That should be okay. I've seen some classrooms where they have like wiggly stools, or they'll have like bumpy seats, or they'll have like therapy balls, like lots of varieties of things they can sit on, which I think is fabulous, because then kids can find out what works for me so I can sit and focus. Looking at the comments again, movement always helps, even now. Absolutely. Yeah, and as adults, I think it gets harder to remind ourselves of that, because we can get so sucked into work, and like hours can go by, and then you get up and we're feeling stiff, and then our brain feels a little fried.
Yeah, like you and I were talking earlier, and I'm like, I sent you a text, and I'm like, I got to go out and go for a walk. I just needed to pull off, step off, do some breathing. I mean, it's nice and cool out. It's finally not 55,000 below zero. It was 25, and it felt great. But just to get out and reset, and let your mind open up, right? Because your mind can't open up when you're doing one of these things. You need to put yourself in a timeout. But like you and I have talked about it before, it's not a one and done. It's a daily practice. It's a waking up and setting the temperature like a thermostat, not being a thermometer, recording everything, but setting your intention as you go. And if you forget, forgiveness, grace, all that good stuff. Okay, do over, stop. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you need to set a timer too, it's recommended that you get up and move every hour, you get up and move for about 10 minutes. But even if it's at 5 minutes, if you get up and walk around the hallways or wherever it is that you're working, get out and get some fresh air. That's great. So, what were some of the other things that you were wanting to chat about?
Well, I mean, we're just talking about, let's talk about Andy Wilson. He's joining us now from out in California, and he has a daughter that's preschool. I'm not just arrived. He just arrives as Dan splits, but that's what it's all about. And then Daniel Maffett. Daniel's actually everybody. This is Lara, my girlfriend. We'll say it several times. She is an early childhood special educator. And this is like, and if I get that wrong, she can correct me. I think I got it right.
You got it right.
It's a long title, and sometimes I fumble, but that's all right. And it's just about talking about, we can go into art and music and movement and why those rudimentary things we want to instill in kids at an early age. And when we talk about digital stuff, it's not that digital is wrong, but sometimes we can put a kid, for lack of a better, on autopilot. It's a wonderful babysitter, but as like Dan Roth was saying earlier, touching things, tactile, not textile, tactile. Those things are important. Yeah. And also here, being in a community where we're all creatives are as porous as a sponge. We absorb everything around us. And you have to learn to be mindful of that, because you can absorb the doom scroll and it spills into all your stuff. Daniel Maffett, he just came back from a long adventure out west, content creating. But if he was sitting there getting wrapped up in things that weren't good for him, that would have directly maybe affected the projects he was working on.
Yeah.
So if you're teaching kids these skills really early, And I mean, speak to that. Like, how can you, when a kid, if a kid is, do you have children that maybe you work with, and let's call it art therapy for lack of a better? When I was a little boy, I used it and I didn't even know that's what I was doing because it wasn't given a word yet. But
Yeah.
do you see that being effective, art, music, therapy stuff?
Oh my gosh, it has so many benefits for so many different reasons. I actually had a conversation with my art teacher about this because I was curious what her thoughts were about the importance of art in school and for this in my population of kids that I work with. And Andy, I'm a preschool special educator, so I work with 3 to 5 year olds. I see you're a dad of a 4 year old.
Yeah.
Um, so that's my age group. I love
That's your
them.
wheelhouse. That's your
It
jam.
is. It is. So, at any rate, some of the things that this art teacher was saying, given our population, she actually went on and did her master's on that very thing. Like, how is art therapeutic in the school system without it being like therapy, because you can't do therapy like that in school. But um, what's so important across the board anyway in school is, first of all, you just got to build a relationship with the kids. You have to
Yeah.
have a relationship. That's so
Yeah.
critical for anything. If they're going to learn from you, they need to know that you like them. They need to know that they feel safe with you. They need to feel comfortable in the classroom, in the space.
Yeah.
So that connection is super important. But she's been able to kind of be a break person for some of these kids as they get older, when they need in their behavior plans, maybe they need sort of scheduled breaks so they can help with regulation. Or if they're feeling a little heightened, she can be a person that they can go to for those that have a relationship with her. And she welcomes them into her classroom and she just lets them draw and create or do whatever they want to do with whatever materials she's got. And she says she notices such a big difference by the time they leave the room.
Yeah.
So art is, and music, I mean, all of it, but we're specifically talking about art right now, how what's so nice about that, and it could go for music too, is that it allows children to express themselves in ways, as you know, Scott, we've had these conversations, and because you didn't even realize you were doing it as a kid, but express themselves in ways that maybe they don't feel comfortable or don't know how to talk about, but they can
Yeah.
put it out on paper. They can put it out through whatever medium it is that they're using.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so
just
outlet.
I think it's really powerful, and to anybody that knows or doesn't know, speaking to my own truth, I lost my mother when I was 8 years old. So when you're 8 years old, you can't articulate necessarily what's going on, but let's just say that there's a narrative all around you that you're not a part of writing. You're just along for the ride. But when I stepped into that spot of drawing, doodling, coloring, whatever, I was finally in a spot where I was controlling the narrative. I was setting the temperature, but I didn't even know I was doing it. And I
Yeah.
speak to that meaning how incredible it is that our bodies are just want us to go somewhere to.
Absolutely. I love that you just said that. I had an occupational therapist that I used to work with who was fabulous at her job. And she used to say to me, if you ever want to know what a kid needs, look at their body, watch what their body is doing. So if a kid is losing their mind and they're sitting on their heads and they're flipping around, well, and they're supposed to be sitting, well, they need to move their body. That's what they're
Yeah.
telling you. So give them a motor break, let them go take a little break to get all of that stuff out.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think, especially what you were just talking about with your mom at such a young age, that's traumatic for a kid. That is a traumatic experience. And unfortunately, a lot of adults, even now, don't know how to talk to kids about death and loss and what that all encompasses and feels like. And hopefully now we can do better as adults
Yeah.
who know better. But again, teaching them how to self-regulate, teaching them that they can have outlets and other ways to express themselves. So
Exactly.
healthy. So healthy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is so healthy. My daughter, I remember just her saying one time, in terms of a good place to go. She loves drawing. She's a part of this event that I'm putting on tomorrow on LinkedIn. Or no, she's not, but Z is. Anyway, getting off topic, she said, when I grow up, can I be an artist like you? Can I do this thing? And I said, I'll tell you what, even if you don't do it as your paid vocation, never forget how it makes you feel, because there are so many grown-ups that don't have a thing to go to. So maybe
Right.
they end up on a bar stool. Maybe they end up in bad situations because they don't have a healthy spot to be. And when I say that, I take it a step further. Like I say, like, I don't care if you basket weave or crochet or do poetry or draw pictures or name it. But we all need that spot. We all need that spot. And that spot is not on a phone. So that's why being bored is a good thing, to exercise your brain so you start to produce rather than consume, produce.
Yeah,
And kids need that.
absolutely. Absolutely. And when we think about, I just had another thought. When we think about like screen time, it's really important too that we be the good role models, right?
Yeah.
There's this poem that I learned way back in my undergrad when I was like, I don't know, 19. And it just stuck with me. And a lot of people might know the quote, but children learn what they live, right? So
Mhm.
if they're watching us and they are emulating us. And so if we're always on our phone or our computer or our devices or whatever it is, then that's what they're seeing.
I'm
And
guilty sometimes. I am guilty.
we
I'm
all
guilty.
are. We all are. We all are. But just to be more mindful of it, because they do learn what they live. And then what do? They will then live out what they're learning. So they will follow those really not so good habits and learn to not have creative expression.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we just have to make sure that we foster those things for them.
Well, it's so
And
funny. Oh, I'm sorry. Continue. I didn't want to stop.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, you and I have even had these conversations where, the past couple of years have been quite crazy, family life and all of that. And the loss of my dad. And you were with me through all of that. And it was about, when I got to the other side of it, it was also about, what does this new landscape look like with that not as a part of the landscape. And it was also it was one of those things where I started paying more attention to what was important and what was just a time suck, because life is always moving. You can't put the brakes on it. And I appreciate learning that in a time, in a season that was really hard, because but it's also about making sure that you hold on to that. Don't remember it and then just let it fall through your hands like water. Remember it and like hold on to it. And if you forget, recover and come back to, these moments are precious, and spending time sitting at a table, drawing with your kids, quality time, all of that stuff is really, really relevant. Right?
Yeah, and I think if we can remain present, then we're good, right? I mean, you can't really be present when you're sucked into your device, because you're
No.
not. You're not even noticing what's happening all around you. So yeah, just being super present with your kids and that good quality time, and that's building all that good stuff we just talked about, those neural pathways in their brain. That's right. That's why we call it.
And you math it. Way to drop it right there. You should write for Hallmark. That is good. It's a gift. That's why they call it present. Yeah. Gosh, I'm gonna write that on a post-it note and stick it on the corner of my monitor, Daniel. I appreciate that.
I do want to bring up something that you were talking about, the importance of of art and music and all of that. But I also want to back up a little bit and talk about the importance of play, which is a part of being bored. You learn how to play as a kid. You just do. And I think kids are so good at just kind of doing what their body needs, doing what they want to do. I have this really cool visual that I wish I could have shared with you, but it's just a little drawing. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a little drawing of kids, preschool kids playing in a classroom, and they're little talk bubbles, because there's this adult asking the teacher saying, what are you doing? Like, all you're doing is you just let them play all day? Like, what are they learning? Well, they learn so much through play. So like all the gross motor stuff, well, they're learning how to move their bodies in space, and they're learning hand-eye coordination for smaller things. They're learning through play with friends how to facilitate and negotiate and communicate, all these wonderful things, and then how to create things and build and come up with play schemes around what they're building. And then they learn how to not just play parallel to each other, but then sort of build into each other's play, and then they join in, and then they create a whole nother scheme. Problem solving. I mean, there's so much that happens in play, and that's why we do play so much in the younger grades. And, you know, that does start to fade out pretty quickly. They still do a lot of it in kindergarten. I wish they did a little more than they do. There's a lot of academic push down through legislation, but which I don't think is totally appropriate. But yeah, it's just so important. So when you think about, you know, your kids in school, they're working so hard. Give them that downtime when they come home. Let them just play. So, and why would we want to squash that anyway? We don't even play.
Because a lot of adults, we forget how to play.
Right.
In the grand scheme of things, you have like, well, you know, with kids being exposed to maybe things that aren't appropriate at a very young age appropriate and all that. Kids by the time they're 12 years old have seen more stuff than by the time I was 20, or have the ability to be exposed to. So like in terms of the time to be a kid and spanned out over the 70 or 80 years that we live,
right.
It's like it.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, see, there's Dan with a link. Dan throws out a link. TED Talk. Love it.
I want to know what the spaghetti tower experiment is.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, if anybody has any comments or questions, please fire them off into the comments section. Hey, now we got another Dan. Dan Wilson is here. Dan Wilson, Dan Roth, Dan Zimmerman left, but I love it. This is good.
A lot of Dan.
Well, there's an Andy and a Scott and a Lara. So, yeah. So let me ask, are there times, like, you know, you talk about how you write, what do you want to call it? You write plans for your kids. You work with kids that have different types of needs. And do you make, first off, you know, like when you're talking about all these different accommodations for a kid to be successful, like seats. And I know, like, my daughter, she's got like a little brush underneath the table to rub her fingers on, a sensory thing. She doesn't always use it. Sometimes it falls off the table, right? But all these different accommodations. When you're doing those types of things, and just asking a question to just open up the spot, how do you know what's going to work for a kid? How do you know? Is that through IEPs, through sitting down, observing, lots of interviews, talking to parents? But how do you know if you can make art, music, play a successful, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't always know. Some things are trial and error. There are some things that I just know by knowing a kid really well. I have a sense, like, I think this is going to work really well for this kid. And then I try it out, and it usually does work really well. I've been in this job a long time, but and I know how to read kids pretty well. But there are things that don't work sometimes, and it is trial and error. And sometimes there are conversations with parents, and sometimes parents have really good ideas of things that I hadn't thought of for their specific kid. I mean, I always say parents are the expert of their child. They are. I like to think I'm an expert in my field, but I'm not an expert on that individual child. Their parents are. So parents are great resources. And sometimes they have strategies at home that work really well. I have some parents who have no idea, and they're begging for resources. You know, I get all ends of the spectrum. But
And
in
you have
terms,
some parents that are like way overachiever all the way down the field, and some that are totally removed and not even on in the bleachers. Like you get it
yeah,
all.
yeah, and I think there's also some parents who just believe in the school system and they believe you guys are the experts, you know what to do, so we trust you to do whatever.
Yeah,
And then there's some parents who don't know how to advocate, not that I guess they just maybe never had parents who knew how to do that, and then they don't know how to do that. They don't know what to ask for. They don't know what to look for. So that's where we come in and we sort of give them some feedback too, right? And we just want to make sure it's a collaborative process anyway. But in terms of music and movement, that's a huge part of what we do in preschool, really important. Um,
and it's
and
one of the first things during budget cuts, as you know. Those are the first things that schools look at, like, oh, it's not that important,
yeah,
but it's like
yeah,
it's like cornerstones of a foundation.
yeah.
Just like you said, play, navigate, association, space, all. Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean in preschool we're lucky because they can't cut us. We're the ones who do the music and movement and the art, you know. They can't cut us. So we have the flexibility to do really whatever we want in terms of that. We're
yeah,
pretty fortunate. But once you get into kindergarten where they're a part of the regular specials, yeah, those do get cut because it's always academics that are the most important for our legislators who are, you know, doing all this push down. Our curriculum directors are always pro-academic, and it's just
you
they
look at
have
other cultures aren't doing that. It's a Western.
no. Well, there are some that are even doing it more intensively, but right, it can go both ways. And I think what they fail to realize is the more that we can regulate our children, that's what's important in order to get them to learn. So if you want the academics to come, well, they need to learn how to sit. They need to learn how to focus. They need to learn how to be creative and critical
Yeah,
thinkers. They need
yeah,
to know how to problem solve and have compassion and make connections and be able to express themselves safely. And all of those things I just listed are things that kids gain from those specials, from
yeah,
PE and art and music. So
yeah.
it's critical to have those in school.
Well,
And yeah, go
oh,
ahead.
oh no, I was going to say I'm looking at Dan Wilson's over here in the comments. How to join? I spend most of my schooling in SPED. I'm not exactly sure what that means.
Special ed.
Okay, SPED. Okay, I don't know all the with an IEP, and so does his daughter, trying to help her through feeling like the only one. So, like, can you speak to that? Do you see that a lot? Do you, you know, because kids can feel like I'm the only one that's like this particular thing.
Oh, I see. Yeah, and I think one thing that's really important to note is that special ed is so different now than it was back when we were all kids. It's very
She's
different. And
with him watching. Yeah, she's right there watching too.
oh, nice. Um, and it depends on what state you're in too, because every state does things differently. In Vermont, we're very big on inclusion. So we want to make sure all of our learners are able to be in the same classroom. And so it's up to the classroom teacher to differentiate the learning, which is hard when you've got kids way up here and kids over here, and everybody's got learning styles that are so drastically different. But you know, for kids who are on IEPs, which is an individualized education plan, part of special education, that's the special educator's job to make sure things are adapted and modified in a way that makes sense for that child and how they learn and where they are in their present learning levels. Um,
And that's your jam.
and so in my school, I don't know what it's like in some of the smaller schools. I imagine it's very different, but we have so many children enrolled in special ed. It's a pretty I don't know why they flock to us for some reason, and I think it's because we've shown that we do special education really well, and
Yeah.
we have a reputation for that. And so
And your school is pretty good size. You have how many class? You have three?
yeah, first of all, I think it's like the second biggest elementary school in the state. I think I could be wrong, but
Yeah, we got like 12 kids there. I'm
What?
kidding.
What?
So we got, there's 12 kids. Because
Right.
there's only 47 Vermonters in the entire state. Just kidding, everybody.
Right.
Just kidding.
Right. Yeah. No, my school is preschool through 8th grade. And in preschool, we have 3 different preschool classrooms, and there are 2 sessions in each classroom. So there's a morning session and an afternoon session, which allows us to serve more kids rather than having a full day program.
Yeah.
So we can serve more kids that way.
Yeah.
But what I was going to speak to is, like, especially in the younger grades, special educators can come in and do a lot of what we call push-in services. So the special educator is really a part of the teaching team. So no kid knows any different as to who's getting what or why, or it's just so normalized.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think what's so important to press upon, which we were talking about earlier, is that learning is such a huge spectrum in the way our brains work, right? And we were talking about neurodivergency earlier and how all of us are neurodivergent. Our brains just all work differently, and we all learn differently. And I think that should be celebrated rather than being made to look at like it's something negative.
Yeah, Dan Wilson up there wrote one won a medal just won a medal in the Olympics.
Yeah.
And then Dan Roth. So we just go by last names. Wilson said this, Roth said this. Math will show up again.
And I do want to speak a little bit, if I can. Vermonter just won, right on. I just want to speak to, I'm a proponent of public schools. I work in one. But I do feel like we tend to squash kids with their talents because we so fit them into a box, right? We put them all in this little box and expect them to all learn this way. And there's not a whole lot of room for straying. And I find that really unfortunate. And it's something I push really hard against in my school because I don't want to squash a kid's joy of skipping down the hallway because they're supposed to walk. That's just one little example. But just thinking about, I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought with all of these messages.
Oh no, it's fine. Just go like this. Don't
have so many challenges.
Come back to it.
Just talking about, like, I want to make sure we're not squashing kids and their talents. I have, Scott and I have talked about this a lot, but I have several children who are non-speaking. They have autism, and they are so brilliant. They have these amazing brains. They can add, subtract, multiply, divide. They're reading. They're not talking, but they're reading. And I know this because I know how to tap into these things with them for them to show me. And so for one, here they are in special ed, but on the other hand, they have these amazing skills that go way beyond their grade level. So like, I want to make sure that their skills get fostered and built upon, and not just like, oh, but we need to be down here because he's only in preschool, so we're not going to do anything else up here. Well, keep going with their strengths, right? And also, I have 2 of them who have been incredibly musically inclined. They can hear a song one time, hum it. One played it on a xylophone and played it on a keyboard. I mean, that could be our next, Mozart or Bach or something. Who knows? Yeah. And I don't want that to ever get squashed. And I think that's something we have to be so careful of in the public school system. And that's when I wish that we had all parents who are really good advocates who could help push for that too. Yeah.
I'm looking up here, Dan Roth, compulsory schooling, persistence, train workers for industry to learn for you, figure out how you learn, and it's an unlock. And then Daniel Maffett, his fix is having a lot of projects at once, jumping between them when he gets distracted, multitasking. And, a lot of us are kind of wired that way. It's not really whack-a-mole, but sometimes it's like, okay, I got to put that on the back of the stove, turn that flame down, and pull this other thing forward because I need to do this thing. Oh, gosh, Zimmerman is back. I thought he had to split. He must be done with dinner. I love it. This is like Dan Town. Well, Daniel Maffett, but this is like all of the Dans. This is like, yeah.
I'm curious because I have to multitask to survive. I find that really fascinating. I would love to hear more, because I used to be really good at. You may have to change your name. um, yeah, because that's something that I could do really well in my 20s. I could multitask like nobody's business in my job, and now I can't do it at all. And
Yeah.
I actually read somewhere that, and you may prove what I read very wrong, is that we're not built to multitask, which is sort of like I was saying, we're not built to scroll so fast on our devices either. So I'm really curious, that this multitasking works so well. It was Dan Zimmerman who said that, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, multitask so well. Daniel Maffett,
crashing down.
Gets distracted. Yeah, and I just even like what Dan Roth wrote. Public schools have so many challenges. Educators are saints. You have a true servant heart, and everyone has an opinion, and it's hard because it's not a one size fits all. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I don't multitask, I would die. All right, I'll give you some projects tomorrow, Maffett. So you'll be okay.
I want to go back to that in a second, but I just do want to go back to the challenges that we have in the public school is so true. Not only different opinions all over the place, but school boards, and like if they're voting your budget down, like, oh my gosh, how frustrating is that? I could go off on that forever. But there's just so many constraints that we have to work with, and it can make it really, really challenging. So
can I put up your LinkedIn link? Do I have permission to put your link up there?
Sure.
Okay. If any of y'all want to see Lara on LinkedIn, that's her thing on LinkedIn.
So I'm curious.
Dan Zimmerman's wife is an art educator.
I kind of want to go back to the multitask thing though, because now there are two people who are saying that. And everybody's an artist on here, right?
Yeah.
Some form or another.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's like a creative brain thing. I don't know. I'm very curious to learn more about that and to hear more about that.
Well, I can tell you that I can only speak my truth. Dan says, I think it is. If you look behind me, that's like what my brain is doing all the time. That's what's going on inside. And I've gone through.
That's what the brain looks like, just like.
I mean, this is everything, right? This all spilled out from between the 6 inches between my ears. But where I'm going with it is I mean, I've had seasons in my life. Dan Zimmerman's laughing. I've had seasons in my life where I've gone months without even listening to music because it was already too loud inside.
Yeah.
It's already too loud. I don't need more. Or I've had times where I've needed noise because it just felt flat inside. But it is busy like that. Zimmerman, I mean, I've interviewed him before inside of his space, and behind him is a whole thing. Daniel Maffett, same way. He's my therapist. Tells me that creative brains have to have stimulus in different areas, or it starts to get bored and make distractions. So I didn't know this. Well, I mean, I did, but I didn't.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Andy Wilson used to tell people at a conference, room I had too many people talking with ideas. Yeah, it can feel.
Yeah.
I remember one time, a long time ago, being like in an interview thing, and I said, imagine my head being a stadium, and all the seats are full, and every seat is an idea, and you have to pick one, and you say, come down onto the field, let's play this game. And that's really what it was like. Like every single one of these was a seat up in the bleachers, and you bring it down and you work on it. Now, Daniel Maffett, he can work with 35 players. I'm not a 35 player. I could probably work with 5, but yeah.
Well, that's really interesting because it sounds like that could also be ADHD, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Or is it really not? Maybe it's just a creative brain.
Well, they are. I guess all of us can only speak our truth, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not a one size fits all.
No.
but I mean, I can just tell you that I don't know if I'd throw the H in, like 8 hyper disorder, but I know that I
Yeah.
had a deficit disorder. Sometimes I think the H maybe doesn't belong, but people put it in, and sometimes it's just a flat ADD and it's manageable. Mine's
Yeah.
not hyper. I mean, I
Yeah.
can fix it by cross hatching on this notebook, right? But still, it still is what it is. Everybody in here, I'm positive I have that. Yeah.
It is interesting to think about though, because I also think about that even with these kids that I was just talking about with autism, who are so incredibly genius level. And I just think that maybe like our brains are evolving, right? And maybe that's the way, I don't know. It's just something I think about a lot. I think about like, we're so heavy on diagnosing. We always need to diagnose, right? And maybe that's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Maybe we don't
Yeah.
need to diagnose at all. And maybe these are just real. Why does it have to be a negative diagnosis when it could be a gift?
Why does everything have to be a label? That's right. Because sometimes that can be stigmatizing. That can be
Yeah,
debilitating. That can be, I've got this thing, I'm known as so and so with the such and such. Rather than,
absolutely.
and I like how we've talked about that. You've taught me things in terms of we break that, even rewording things, a neurodivergency. There are, and it's not even special education. The word special makes you feel like, well, special, like when we were kids, like, oh, he's special. No, it's about tunnel vision, specialized learning, not specialized. Because, yeah,
I love that.
uh,
Yeah.
so there, use it. Like math, it says he's got high definition. You're such an overachiever.
I love I love that high
Yeah,
definition.
Zimmerman, my brain is a library, and there are people running back and forth grabbing books, which represent, yeah, all, boom, yeah, shells. Shells are, yes, one thing comes down, something else goes in there, and sometimes
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
out
yeah.
thing sends you in another direction. You all tell me, if, and Wilson too, like it's amazing. People drink coffee,
I love
calm
this
down,
stuff in here.
stimulate. Yes, chewing
Yeah,
gum. Did you share that thing with me about chewing gum?
well, it's a
What?
thing that we do in school too. That's another accommodation we have for some kids.
Yeah, divergence is a gift. It's absolutely a gift.
Yeah, agreed.
No, chewing gum. I
Well,
don't know where I
we
saw
we
that.
allow a lot of kids to do that during testing, and there's this thing about when you chew gum, like you're getting more air and oxygen into your brain when you're chewing the gum. But also for some, it might also just be again a sensory thing. Um, yep, to help focus. Don't choke when you're doing it, though. That's what we would say for little kids. Don't run around with gum in your mouth.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah, the coffee, the caffeine thing is interesting too, because I remember when my daughter, she never got the diagnosis of ADHD, but she was darn close, and they pretty much considered her as having it. And so she was treated for it only because she was telling me, I didn't want to put her on any medication, but she was telling me, Mom, I really cannot focus in school and I don't know what I'm going to do. And it changed her. It really helped change her life. But the doctor had said in the meantime, drink some caffeine, drink some Mountain Dew, drink something, whatever, and it will really help. And I notice that when I have caffeine, and I'm not a coffee drinker, but if I have some caffeinated tea or something in the morning, it really helps me to focus at work. It
Hmm.
really makes a difference. And for others, people get the jitters. I don't know. It's different for different brains because all of our brains are different.
McBride said that when he,
I know people who did that too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Who would stick their tongue out. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I think it's just a
so
sensory
we're,
thing.
here I am, like everybody, as we're doing this, my head is like down because I was the one that looked at my fingers when I was typing in typing class, because I really didn't care about how good my typing speed was. I was just going to look at my fingers and get done. But you can be talking and reading and going, oh, la la, henpecking. Yeah, I'm a henpecker. I'm all right. Sweet tea and Coke is my go-to. I can drink
Yeah.
a case of Coke. Brush your teeth really good. Now I sound like a dad. Brush your teeth good.
Yes,
Uh,
and caffeine can cause anxiety. That is true.
and everything. It's about knowing your thing, and
Yeah.
it's about regulating, and it's about making that acknowledgement every day when you start, like, right? And it's not a one and done like we were talking about earlier on. It's about, uh-oh, I ran this way too far. I need to stop and I need to regather and then go. I've cut back on coffee. I'm drinking water. I know you're happy that I'm drinking water. Like, but most creatives, most artists are totally dehydrated because we get in the zone and we put our head down. And when we put our head back up, oh my gosh, it's next Wednesday. And
Right.
I'm tired. I've been up for 87 hours straight. Coffee is just dirty water. Ah, yeah.
That's true,
great.
though. This caffeine before bed with no problem is classic ADHD. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my daughter for sure. Yeah.
Dan Wilson said my mom would doodle while talking on the old corded phone. Yeah, you know, that's the thing. Like, you could be listening to Aunt Barbara and you'd be going, yeah, yeah, because she can't see that you're drawing. She can only hear your voice, right?
That's right. Right.
And sometimes that would, at least for me, I didn't have an Aunt Barbara, but I had family that if I was on the phone, I'd be like, do I really have to talk to her? Yes, you have to talk. Okay, I'm going to draw.
I would always twirl the cord. I would
Yeah.
play with the cord, stretch it out, twirl it.
Yeah.
That was my thing. Yeah.
No, that's I'm really grateful that you are our first, maybe of many, educational based. Everybody in here is an inquisitive. Everybody is has a learning spirit, just like you. And that's the thing. It's about just wanting to get up and absorb, right? But it's really important that we pay attention to what it is we're absorbing.
Yeah.
What do you see? Just to ask you this question, you know, you have every year you have a caseload, and I remember, you know, when we first started dating, you'd say like, my caseload is really heavy, and I didn't know what any of that meant. Like, I'm thinking like you're carrying around a gym bag full of manila envelopes with papers in there, and you're like, no, a kid is scored on a 1 to 3. Like, 3 is really heavy and a 1 is whatever. And but so every year that changes, and every year you work with kids, how long does it take you to learn and find your rhythm with a child?
Oh,
Like,
not long. Not long at all. Some kids I've definitely been challenged by. There was one child that I just felt like I couldn't reach at all a couple years ago, and it was a child with autism who was non-speaking, and I couldn't tap into him. It was really hard. But for the most part, it really doesn't take long at all. And it's a matter of knowing child development. It's knowing, the range of what's out there for diagnoses. It's just really building relationships with kids, which is super easy to do. You know, they're so cute and they're so sweet, and they also can be very explosive in these tiny little bodies. They've got a lot going on inside, and it's just a matter.
They all come from such different backgrounds. Every one of them comes in with a story in their backpack that they bring with them, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And some are really horrific.
Yeah.
And so some kids, I kind of tell the teachers, like, this is one that you're going to have to really front load the love and attention. You know, as soon as they come in that door, you are really giving them what they need in order for them to feel safe and secure in this space. But yeah, caseload changes drastically from year to year. It's always big. I think every special educator will say that. So yeah. I don't know if this, was helpful to anybody, or if people had any more questions, or if they were wanting something else out of this conversation. But I'm certainly,
you did totally insightful. No, listen, here's the thing. What's really wonderful about these, and I'm gonna let you just know, everybody get a load of this. I thought we were like on like live number 31 or whatever. This is number 49, everybody. This is our 49th live. Anyway, that was just a fun fact. That's a 4 and a 9, 49. 4 dancing fingers. Anyway, the whole idea behind why we do these things, Lara, and everybody I would agree, is we leave here with a sense of knowing our community members that much better. People feel seen, they feel heard, they can find familiarities, like Dan wrote, totally insightful, absolutely. And I know that everybody was in here spinning out saying, I can identify with that, or I have somebody in my family, and some of these people have their kids with them here right now in this. And yeah, thanks for coming to our party. Exactly that. No, I think that it was really remarkable. And you and I have been talking about this stuff for years.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. For sure, Andy. I'm all ears, and I would love further conversation. I love talking about all of this stuff anyway. I mean, it's my passion. So
yeah, so I mean, I put her link up in there for LinkedIn. So any of y'all that are on LinkedIn, but you've also seen her like comment on my posts on LinkedIn because she's a rock star. She's my ride or die, and I really appreciate that. So she's very easy to find on my LinkedIn page, but connect with her. And she has such a resource of links and places she could send you to in terms of resourceful stuff. She's very much a heavy researcher. Like even before this live, she showed up with stuff. She already showed up with it. She was already front loading. I'm like Mr. Wing It. That's why I think we're so great together.
compliment one another.
You can't do that, huh? Sure. You silly artist person. Yeah.
Just as a little disclaimer, though, for people if you follow me on LinkedIn, I do a lot of my posts are about trauma and things related to trauma. So it might seem a little heavy, but
Yeah.
that's kind of my purpose of being on LinkedIn. But I'm so happy to talk about education and development, anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's really awesome. And I know that, you're also a speaker. You haven't had a speaking engagement in a little while. So thank you for like brushing it off and coming in here and being here with us. John McBride, everybody here, just so everybody knows, she already knows you guys, even though she hasn't like known you guys, because I talk about all y'all. Don't I? Tell her.
Yeah,
Tell
I know all these names.
Yeah, I said, like she won't be here. I'll be like, oh my gosh, 35 Dans showed up, all of them. and then there was an Andy.
I'm not Dan. I love that.
Yeah, I'm not Dan. All Dans. Everybody's laughing, and that's the thing. Smiles are free, and they feel great when they're worn properly from ear to ear. And I love that. No, I just want to say I'm so grateful that you took the time to be with us. Yeah, I am Dan. I am. Yeah, but you're the fancy one with the IEL on the end.
So do I get to answer your famous question, that you ask everybody in closing?
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if it's a famous, it's just the ringer at the end. Yeah. No, I mean, when you're in a spot like this, because we talked about open networks and we talk about digital stuff and all of those different things. So what does it mean to you? And you are a creative, you do the journaling and the poetry and all that you do. What does it mean to you when you're like in this controlled environment? There's no algorithm, there's no vanity metrics, there's nothing that needs to chug, there's no priming. What does a space like this mean to you as a participant in our space?
Well, first of all, the priming of algorithms really drives me bonkers. I can't stand it because that's how they keep you on there. That's how addiction to social media happens. And so I have a real big problem with that. I think what's so nice about this space is, especially for you all speak a common language, right? You all know what you're all talking about. You can share and people understand. And And I know you've said this before, Scott, but like there's no extra noise. That's really nice. There's no extra noise. It's just super focused, and it's really great. Plus, it's just been really fun. I've been laughing a lot, which has been really enjoyable because laughing is good medicine. But, you know, I can speak to also just community in general, whether it be like online or real community in person, and how important that is, because we all need to have a sense of belonging and connection. We're human, and that's what drives us. And you guys are really funny. And community also just reduces loneliness, and you can feel a sense of support. It helps boost self-esteem. You can come together for mutual interests. But it's one of the things that they say is most important as you get older. And you need to keep those social connections and have community, because you don't want to be isolated, because that'll increase your risk of depression and anxiety. People are actually healthier mentally and physically as they age if they are connected with people and are part of a community. So it's critical.
And you know, even if this isn't IRL, but this is close to IRL as we can get in terms of we're scattered all over the country here, but we're all in here speaking a common language, and there's a familiarness, and there's a connecting, right?
Yeah, it's really good stuff.
I love it.
Yeah.
And thank you for speaking to that. Like, you're right, as we get older, we really need this. Humans are social creatures. Don't know how to say it any different. I don't care if it's a fly fishing group and everybody's talking about that, or learning how to play cribbage. Like your aunt, she does like quilting, so she has like quilting jams. She's got like a quilting squad. They do like quilting throwdowns, and we are designed that way.
Absolutely.
We're designed to do what we're doing, and it's really nice. And it's nice that older traditions know about that. Older traditions know, whereas younger traditions, there is more of a loneliness, there is more of an isolation. Even though we're plugged into all these things, we're not really plugged into the people. We're just observers.
Yeah.
And we're watching highlight reels, and that's like a whole other conversation. But like
Absolutely.
really being in it, like I know all these people in this comment section, even though we haven't all. I've never hung out with any of these people in real life, but I've had some real meat and potato conversations with each one of these people, and that matters to me, and that makes my life feel like I've got relationships that really have some context, you know?
Yeah, it brings value and meaning for sure.
Danny Andy Wilson. The DA. DAW. Call you Daw. Yeah. I was trying to be serious, Wilson, and then you show up and pull that stunt. What are you, Evil Knievel?
And I love cribbage. That's awesome. I used to play that with my grandfather. Nice.
Yeah. Well, now you know, we just ran long, and I'll be like, you know, because I've called you after, like, we just got done, and that's why, because an hour is just whatever. It goes by
fast.
Just like that.
Yeah.
You guys find her on LinkedIn if you would like. And yeah, I'm just really grateful that you took the time to share with the community, and just thank you.
Does it have to end? That's the question.
Does it have to end? Well, we're on EST. Like McBride is out in Arizona and Wilson is out in California. So like they're still eating their Cheerios.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This was fun. You guys are a great bunch.
We'll do it
now
again.
I know why you love it so much.
Yeah. The community's rad. All right, guys, I want to thank you so much. This was like one of the most incredible turnouts. All the Dans, every single Dan showed up, and an Andy and a John, and a Scott and a Lara. 35 Dans, an Andy, a Lara, and a John and a Scott walk into a cribbage tournament. Sounds like a joke. All right. Have a great night, everybody, and thanks for being with us. And this Spitball session is over and out. Y'all have a great night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.